Hi, everyone. Steve Wasik here, VP of Talent Services, husband, father, and mushroom coffee advocate.
Hello, my name is Katie Hillary, our Chief of Staff of Sales. I spell chief wrong more often than I spell it right.
I am Bert Bean, CEO of Insight Global. Insight Global is super awesome and great. 4.5 billion talent and professional services and staffing company. It took a while to get out.
There you go.
I was like, do you know what we do here?
We made it.
Episode 2, boys.
Let's
we
go.
did not get canceled. Congratulations.
Let's go.
Very proud of us. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of culture. And the only way to properly get into that is to dive into our origin story. So, Bert, will you please take us there?
Yes. Oh, well, hi, sure. So, the company started, Glenn Johnson, our founder, and a guy named Scott Madden started the company in Glenn's basement. Glenn's an amazing dude, amazing salesperson, amazing leader. Grew the company from the basement to almost $2 billion in revenue by the end of 2017. Really, he did it by hiring a bunch of marketing B average grads like me.
B is kind. B average is kind.
Yeah.
I think it was more C's, but okay.
Yeah. So no, I was like elite in my fraternity.
Okay,
At B average.
okay.
It was good. But no, so we, but along the way, we just we were focused on growth, and we were focused on trying to get there as fast as we could, and along the way, we just started experiencing a little bit of turnover here, a little bit of turnover there, and it kind of snuck up on us. But by 2017, it was like, wow, you think you had a turnover problem in your company? We were the best at turnover. Like nobody could.
Gold star.
Nobody could out turnover us. People.
We were over 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome at a
Which I don't even know how that's possible.
I don't know either, but it was bad. And so I became CEO around that time, and this was my problem that I had to own and figure out, and how do we fix it and solve it and all this kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, I was meeting with our then private equity owners at the time, great guys out of Ares. Ares is the name of their firm out of LA, and they were trying to get me to hire a CHRO, and it was going to try to hire somebody from the outside to help solve this turnover problem. That was when I was like, I can't hire somebody from the outside because we only hire recruiters here. At least in my brain, that's how I thought. And I was like, but I got this guy. Yeah, I got this guy. He doesn't know I'm thinking about him, but he'll do it. His name is Eli Doster. And he was running talent acquisition for us at the time and had been at the company as long as I had been. And I was just like, yeah, he'll be perfect. He doesn't know, but I'll talk to him. It'll be cool. And they were sort of like, you can't do that. Come on, man. Like, hey, you need to hire somebody with experience. And then that's when I got to do the whole no, you just promoted somebody to CEO without experience. So, I mean, I think we're past that little problem. So anyway, they were like, all right, let the idiot do it. He'll last only a year. So I did, and we hired Eli, or just moved him into this role, and it was great. So, but he and I and the rest of my leadership team and others, Steve, you were there.
Yep.
We got together on how to do this, and I was really desperate for change, and really desperate. So it's funny, if you're thinking about culture change yourself as a leader, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to work unless you're desperate for change. You can't just sort of be like, oh, maybe that's a good idea. I'll send around a podcast by Insight Global. You can't, it doesn't work. And as good as this podcast is, you have to be really desperate for change. And I certainly was. And I didn't want to work at a company that nobody else wanted to work at. I mean, just like them, they were quitting. I was like, I don't want to work here either if you guys don't want to work here. So I was like, we better change the culture. And my executive coach asked me a really simple question one day. He was like, well, Bert, what are your guys' values? And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, we did have these things called the 8 core principles, which were very important to Glenn and us at a certain time, but it was weird. Those were not sticking anymore, and that they kind of weren't a thing, and it was weird. I could tell like that for whatever reason, it wasn't doing it. So we had to figure that out ourselves. And I was a part of a men's retreat at my church, and we'd done a really wild thing. We had gone away to this cabin. We told our stories. Everybody cried. and it was like really great and really bonding. And I thought, I wonder if I could bring elements of that into work. And I was like, oh, let's try. So, so I like
campfires, crying, bonding. Let's go.
Perfect. So I like the American West. I found a house and in outside Park City, Utah, on Weber Canyon Road, and I rented it and told everybody we're gonna go and we're gonna get together and figure some stuff out. It was like 26 of us in all. And most people were like, what is this? Why are we doing this? And I was like, don't worry. We'll do it from Tuesday to Thursday, so you won't miss the weekend. It'll be great. And I was like, okay, when we got there, I wanted everybody to share, hey, what's your proudest moment in your career and what's your lowest moment in your career? And I think people were also like, why are we even talking about this? Well, we needed to answer questions like, who do we want to be? What are our values? What are those things? What's like the new identity of the company? But I knew that we would only get like really surface BS answers to that unless we really went there and played the crying game. So we did that. And, I went first and I really went there. Proudest moment in my career, lowest moment in my career. And then everybody else was like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to go there, I'll go there. And everybody started sharing not just that PG-13 rated version, but like the rated R version that everybody has. They just don't know, can I share this? And it was great. I mean, I think the whole conversation went, Steve, probably 6 or 7 hours. And I think we started at like 2 p.m. and it went to like,
I think it was
12,
2 a.m.
Yeah.
So we went to bed.
Yeah. But it kind of felt like time was standing still. It was really a special thing. I mean, people
didn't want to be anywhere else.
People were sharing things they had never said before ever. And then from across the room, you would hear somebody else say, hey, I've struggled with that same thing and I got your back. You don't ever have to walk that lonely walk again. And it was really powerful. And so the next day, we knew exactly who we were. We were incredibly grounded. We knew what we cared most about. And out of that came our shared values, our 5 shared values. Everyone matters. We take care of each other. Leadership is here to serve. High character and hard work above all else, and always know where you stand. And we really use those as the foundation to make all sorts of decisions, right? Like, well, darn, if everyone matters, then I guess we got to come up with better training, right? So we really didn't have good like regimented, systematic training. So we created Insight Global University from that. We started talking differently and involving everybody in the company. Okay, if always know where you stand is important, we got to be way more real with how we confront each other and how we talk about hard things together, And if we take care of each other as real, then we probably need some sort of like fund that steps in and helps people when they find themselves in financial hardship. And the Insight Global Family Foundation came out of that. So it was a great way for us to be like, okay, hey guys, here's who we are as a company. Here's the new values of the company. And from that came the new culture. And how I define culture is simply the work habits that we form around the things that we value. And so if the company or if the people at the company value things like we take care of each other, high character and hard work above all else, and everyone matters, then habits will form around those things, work habits will form, and that's your culture. But if you're not quite on the nose with what the things are that you value, and let's say that instead people tend to value gossiping and being lazy and backstabbing, then habits form around those and you get a very different culture. And so I think from that, we really saw, wow, these are right and these are adopted, and the company loved them and took them up and formed amazing habits. And that's today, since then, we've now grown to over $4.5 billion of revenue in the last 7 years. And it's really because of our culture. It's because of the work habits that people form. And that's when we say culture is our causation for success, that's what we mean.
So say what culture is again. It's the habits that you form around your values.
Yeah, I say culture is the work habits that we as people form around the things that we value.
Yep. And okay, love that definition. And also I just love our origin story.
Yeah.
Definitely came from a dark place.
Yeah,
people firing us left and right.
Yeah.
We'll go deeper into that really quick. I just had something flash in my brain.
What is
I have
this?
to speak to.
Well, also, Steve, this is kind of your Super Bowl episode.
Oh yeah.
This will not be the last time we talk about culture. This is your baby.
I am giddy. Let's be real.
Okay, so what's your flash? Give us the first.
No, so I just had a flash in my brain. So I was at this meeting in Compass that Bert talked about, and I was actually sitting next to him. I don't know if you remember that. And at the very beginning of that meeting, we were starting to open up and Bert was going first. And I just remember our culture previously was buttoned up. Like I had never seen Bert in anything other than a pair of like Alan Edmonds black lace-ups. Like, like, you know.
And you'd known him for how long?
Tie,
15
shaving
years?
every day. Like I'd never seen
Because
Bert.
Alan Edmond black loafers are not profesh.
That is the only thing I'd ever seen Bert wear. And then here we are in Utah, and I just remember he like crossed his legs and he had these socks on, and I was like, oh, I know those socks. I think he bought those at Costco. And then he just started talking, and it was profound. It was like, whoa, like what? I remember I had my notebook where I had all my answers to the Compass questions written out, and then Bert started talking, and I just like threw it. I like hid it under the couch. I was like, I'm not gonna say any of that shit after what he just said. So, I just had to. I had to hit you.
But that's the exact.
I had to hit you with the socks moment.
But that's the reaction you need as a leader that's trying to tackle some pretty big issues, whether it's culture change or whatever. That if I don't get in my Costco sock, crisscross applesauce, that was the right term.
The best way to say it.
Yes. Then we're all playing pretend, and you got the fake answers to the fake questions, and we're not really getting there.
And if you don't go first, I always love the saying leaders go first, because that does set the tone, and that does make your BS answer that you penciled in your notebook unacceptable.
100%.
And that makes you want to have that conversation until 2 a.m. So Steve, what is Steve the scientist, the culture scientist? How do you define culture?
By the way, I do like your definition. Bert and I have squabbled over this over the years. Light squabble. No, I like it. I think the first thing is let's hit 101 first. Okay. So what happens too often is people think good culture, we take care of our people. Bad culture, we don't take care of our people. There's more to it. By the way, I fundamentally agree with that. That is like a great starting point. But what's awesome about culture is there's a lot more to it. It is our thinking. Mm-hmm. So here's kind of how this works. It's kind of fun. So human beings, we walk around planet Earth, right? And we're a part of different groups of people. And
always have.
As we walk around planet Earth, we try behavior, right? We try a behavior. Mm-hmm. And then based on that behavior, we get a result, good or bad. And then we form a belief.
Okay,
like,
following.
Not going to do that again.
Yep.
Right? Or, oh man, that went really well. And then over time, the revolutions of us trying behavior, getting results, wires our neurology. Mm-hmm. And that is
Steve
our
is such a scientist.
Oh my God.
Such a scientist.
Actually get it.
So Bert said this
Can
the
you
other
give
day.
me a real example, though?
Bert,
I do get it.
I'll give you a real example.
Okay.
I'll give you a real example.
Okay.
But Bert said this the other day, and I don't know where he got it, but he said culture change is brain change. And he's exactly right. Culture forms its learning that gets built up over time that becomes the beliefs about what we should do in a situation or other. So like how a company solves its problems, that's their culture, right? How a company would approach a challenge or change, like that is their culture. It is not just do you take care of your people or not, right? So this is actually kind of funny. I got to partner with this guy, Ed Schein, who's like, Google him right now if you can. He's like the GOAT of organizational culture. He passed away when he was 94 years old a few years ago. And I weirdly got to spend like the last 2 years of his life.
I forgot about that. You and Ed were boys.
So I got to spend
Steve
time
was like
Ed.
boys with him.
Oh yeah,
for the
I got to
last
spend
2
time
years
with
of his
Ed and
life.
his son Peter. And then I met him because I hired Tim Coupler, who's like one of the leading experts in the world in this topic. But I got to know Ed like really well, and he spent a lot of the last years of his life with us because of that thing that Bert just talked about. Ed, after studying culture his entire life, learned one thing: building the right culture comes down to relationships. Relationships come down to our ability to be real with one another. And so Bert like had that in his stomach. We did it, and then Ed realized that that's what this thing we were building, Compass, is all about. And so he just wanted to give us all the knowledge he could.
In his last 2 years of life.
He adopted Steve as a young culture boy.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
So this is so funny.
Carry his legacy on.
So I had just built this slide with Ed and with Tim where it's like behavior connected to results, and then that forms our beliefs. And so that's why I like habits around our values. It's how it works. It's your learning. So the next day I was having dinner with my family, and it was like the end of dinner, and my son Lucas is not a big eater, but Lucas did a pretty bang up job on his chicken and vegetables. So I was like, he was probably like 2 years old. I was like, hey Lucas, close your eyes.
I love can you see Steve making his kids do culture stuff?
So Lucas closes
And
his
also
eyes.
New Jersey Carly, his wife, like, Steve, what are we doing?
So Lucas closes his eyes. When he opens his eyes, I like had an ice cream cone. like a little like Trader Joe's ice cream cone, whatever. And so he's like, wow, and then he eats the ice cream cone. So
Welcome to the experiment, Lucas.
well, no, so he was the one teaching me the experiment in this case. So then the next night, we're sitting at the dinner table, and it's like same time, and I look over, and we're chatting, and I look over, and Lucas just closes his eyes.
Whoa.
And I was like, I was like, honey, what is he doing? Oh my God. Like, I try behavior, I get result, I form belief. Like he had closed his eyes because he thought if he did, I would give him ice cream. Right? And so my wife and I have since broken that. That has not become a belief, but it was powerful for me because as I was meeting with
I would
Ed,
have loved if you reinforced it, by the way, just he lives his whole life just blinking.
but like so there's a lot of people out there that are like not culture people. They're like, no culture, I don't do it. It's like, you just grow up. Like this is how
accept
human
it's a
beings
thing.
are wired, right? We are not thinking machines. We're feeling machines that think, and Lucas proved that. Like, and so now, like when you think about your culture, yes, it is, you need to take care of your people, but it's much deeper than that. Like think about your culture as the way your organization thinks. If you can tap into that, now you can start to do some stuff that'll advance your ability to get results.
This is why Steve takes companies through how to build their culture, and I don't.
I mean, you got it in you.
Am I being weird? Am I being weird? Just tell me if I'm being weird.
No, a little bit,
Okay.
but we're following.
Okay,
We're following.
okay.
So what are some signs of healthy culture?
People are able to speak up about things that are on the rise. People have no fear being like, hey, Bert, something we should do better is. Like that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite things to see. Just healthy, open dialogue.
Regardless of rankings, like
Yep, exactly. Regardless of the pecking order, people willing to speak up. People going out of their way to do a little bit more. Like people caring. Right? Those are healthy. We love to see these things. The patient is healthy. When we see people speaking up, when we see them caring to do a little bit more, innovation is another one. When people are like coming up with creative ways that do new stuff, there's a lot that takes in the brain. And if we're innovating, we're probably more healthy.
I feel like innovation does come from an acceptance in a culture of being welcoming of mistakes,
Totally.
like not shaming mistakes and encourage them.
That's an amazing attribute.
Actually, did you all last week read Warren Buffett's letter to his shareholders?
No, but you're like the fourth person that's told me about it.
I didn't read it.
I'm kind of surprised that you
know.
aren't
I
a
know.
fanboy. Like you
Yeah.
strike me as a Warren Buffett.
I know.
kind of
I just
follower.
haven't. I watched a documentary on him like 10 years ago, and I think I was like, I get it. But
No,
that's
I don't.
Probably not
Then
right.
maybe you don't
Yeah.
get it because that's just like he's kind of like our people. So he writes a letter to the shareholders of Berkshire Hathaway every year, and so his this year, which probably maybe will be his last. I hope it's not. He's 94, and he's incredible, and he's acting CEO over one of the largest companies in the world, and this letter is so approachable and easy to read, and it's lighthearted and it's consumable, and it's as if it's any other company that has its quarterly earnings call. It feels so rigid and data oriented.
Soulless.
It's soulless. And this, it's like he refers to you as you, not as shareholder. He's talking to you, but in the first section, he's got his intro where he's talking to you, but then the first section of it is labeled something along the lines of we make mistakes too, and he just owns up to some of the mistakes that they've made. And by the way, they had an incredible year, but that is just how he starts, and I think that's no surprise that a company like that has been resilient for decades. But like that's an amazing culture, and that just sets the tone that a CEO is willing, in his letter to shareholders every year. He pointed out that in the last 4 years, he has used the word mistake or errors in this annual letter 16 times.
Wow.
And none of the other big companies, the big earnings calls are saying, here's where we messed up, here's our mistake. It's almost like taboo to say where you screwed up. And I think that's like,
I think that's
thing.
cool. Like, I think that's a great starting point if we're trying to build a strong culture, is thinking about like, how do we become a company with a soul, right? And I actually think that's kind of our shift. Like, how do you think about that, Bert? How did we get to a point where we have a little bit more of a soul as an organization?
Yeah, I do think that's in there for sure. I think the soul was always it was there before, but it wasn't quite as called out maybe. And I think just as important, I think every company every team, every group has got an inner voice to it. And I think we as leaders always hear it. And maybe we don't always want to listen to it. Maybe we don't just want to do something about it, but it's there. And if you try to hear it, you can really hear it. And so I think it's being able to hear and respond to that inner voice, and seeking really hard to change it. And so, yeah, I think, back to this idea around culture, I like thinking about the company as it's just a big person, one big person. And it's made up of people. And so people want to feel heard and seen and moved. And, maybe, Katie, back to what you were saying about how you listen to other earnings calls and they sound quite soulless and vapid. It's because that's not actually what people want, I think. People, and they don't even know how to articulate it, but the people that we lead, when they want to know what's going on and what are the numbers and are we winning or are we losing, but really what they want is to be moved. Mm-hmm. They want to be moved, they want to be seen, and they want to feel something, and they want to be moved. They want to feel like they're a part of something. That's what we want. And very few companies do that for their people. And so people have just mentally said, well, that's just never going to be in the cards for me, and I guess I don't have to worry about that, and I'll never get that from work. But if you can tap into figuring out how to move people through the culture, through storytelling, through activating the values, then you're going to have a pretty locked in and engaged group of people on your hands to do some real damage with.
And Steve, you kind of touched on this, but why does that matter for business results? Why does culture and getting everybody to feel moved, how does that actually impact the output of the business?
Yeah, it's funny. When you get into this topic, you hear, well, culture is just the soft stuff. We don't want to spend time on that. It's the soft stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been able to consult now for some big companies trying to go through some significant change. And I've been a part of things, I don't know, where I'll do 52 focus groups and be in damn near all 52. Mm-hmm. And I will hear the same structured beliefs about what is happening and what our challenges are. I will hear that almost all 52 times. And then I'm like, this stuff is not soft at all. This is the hardwired thinking that's going to determine, are we going to be able to be resilient? Are we going to be able to solve our challenges, right? So the thing that people get wrong is that this is the soft stuff, and that the efforts that Bert just talked about cultivating, they don't matter because I got to do my results things, mm-hmm. right? So the secret is if you can actually start with results, and this was the Ed Schein quote that made me a fanboy for life and kind of punched me in the stomach. Ed said, businesses don't exist to have a great culture. Businesses exist to serve their purpose, and their culture either helps or hurts their ability to do so.
See, that has stopping power because as a cultural consultant, I don't expect you to say that.
When you get into that thinking, though.
Say that again one more time.
Businesses don't exist to have a great culture. Businesses exist to serve their purpose, and their culture either helps or hurts their ability to do so. Yes. So, Bert, you said culture is the habits that form around our values. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that works because some companies have habits that are formed around their values that help them strive toward their purpose. Mm-hmm. Other companies have habits that have formed around values that are lower order things, and they hold them back. Mm-hmm. And actually, there's a mix of both in every company. Mm-hmm. Every company has habits that help us. Mm-hmm. Every company has habits that hurt us. Mm-hmm. The best companies are the companies that just keep at it, like a good athlete in the gym. Right. We should know that even the ones who do this the very best, they have habits that they need to look in the mirror and stare down and go, we need less of that. We need more of this. Mm-hmm. And they should do all the things that good leaders do, like use language to shine a bright light on those lower order bad habits to try to get people to stop them. Right. So
I don't know who is better to take.
That's gold, dude. That's so gold.
It's incredible. And it really does. I mean, it does answer it. That's.
But the thing that's counterintuitive is if you want to build a great culture, start with the results you need to achieve. Make sure those results are connected to your purpose. So something that we did after that Utah meeting that we had no idea what we were doing, but thank goodness we did this, is we, as Bert mentioned, the shared values. We built the shared values. We're like salespeople, and we're like, well, we need results and we need to measure stuff. And so we built the 4 pillars right after, which were the way in which we would that was the feedback loop that would let us know if we were living those values or not, which is, are we hiring the right people? Are we making sure that when we hire those people, they get converted and promoted into the next role? When they get promoted, are they productive? And do they stay?
Our business flywheel.
So exactly. And so what's funny about those 4 results is they're very connected to our purpose to grow our people personally, professionally, and financially so that they are the light to the world around us. And if you can connect your results to the purpose, then you have a feedback loop that gives you clarity on your habits. Because if you're not living out your results, you probably have some habits that have been built up over time that you need to be looking in the mirror and figuring out what's going on.
We had some of those.
The whole
How do you
world
break them?
Let's get there. The whole world though goes at culture for culture's sake.
Yeah.
Like every podcast I listen to, because I love this stuff. I'm trying to learn. I'm like, nope. Because they're like, just do the culture stuff. And then I'm like, no. Like connect to the results you need to achieve and then lean in with truth to what's happening in your organization and then tilt stuff to achieve the results. You want to build a good company? Build a sustainable way to get good results. You're going to build a great company. You're going to have a great, people be smiling and high-fiving. You'll have great snacks. You'll have all that stuff. But the results are your first priority. And then, Bert, you do an amazing job of this, and I know you hate it. But then go call the people that are responsible for delivering the results and ask them how they are. And be like, are you good? Are we doing well? Is there anything we need to do differently? And then you will have perfect clarity about how you need to evolve your culture to take care of your results.
Yeah, well said. Just well said. No notes. Steve for president.
Okay, well then, Bert, maybe the question is for you, because we did have a lot of bad habits to break. How do you go about breaking bad habits in a company of 5,000 people or a company of 500 or 50,000 people? That feels daunting to me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's disposition of the leader, but it's, I think it starts with knowing that there's multiple ways to get there. There's multiple ways to win. Well, one, to zoom out even more, you have to know that you have a problem. You got it. Like if I'm overweight and unhealthy, but I don't believe that, I'm never going to go to the gym ever. Right?
So 2017, our problem was.
Yeah, which gets back to hearing the inner voice of the company.
Yeah.
Do you hear the inner voice of the company, or are you ignoring it? And so if you are, then you know you got a problem. And if you want to stick around and stay and not just be a one-term CEO, then you probably should fix that.
Who hired his buddy as the CHRO.
Sorry, Eli, that didn't work like I thought it was going to. At least we can go be bartenders, I guess. So you got to know that you got a problem, and then it's sort of kind of easy. You just get all the right people in the room, and you start to put everything on the table, and what do we think is helping us? What do we think is hurting us? And the people that are closest to the action, they always have the right answers. They always know what's going on. The people that are closest to the action can always tell you what is BS and what is not BS. And you'll start to see and uncover like, oh yeah, well, that habit sort of felt sacred that we were doing for so long. This way that we call on customers, this way that we go about our day, whatever it is. But I'm hearing from a lot of people that habit is not achieving the right results that we need. And of course, macro level don't have the right results. And so it's one thing if like people don't like doing something, but it's helping us generate great results. Great. But if we're not and they don't like it, then you got to kill it. But it's amazing how many of those things get hardwired into the business and they become sort of like sacred cows. And you have to not be afraid to take those things out. And so I love that. That's a fun thing to do for me because it introduces a little bit of chaos, and I love chaos. And I maybe not chaos, but I don't know. I do a little bit. I like change a lot because it's just maybe it's my attention span. But I love mixing it up. What if we just didn't do that anymore? Oh my gosh. But you're like, hey, we can figure it out, right? We're not in a complex business. I don't think a lot of businesses are complex. I think that we over-engineer lots of stuff and come up with lots of stupid, dumb rules that we box ourselves in with. And so, yeah, you start to lay those out and you figure it out and you take some out and you kind of, you learn how to build the airplane as you fly it.
That's a very good answer, by the way. Also, there's a couple of things that you did there that I just want to point out. No, like the leader's got to go first there too.
Yeah.
To create the environment where it's okay to call out the sacred cows. And then something that the best leaders at this do is they use language to get clear about what's good and what's not. And I think, Bert, you do a fun job of almost like finding out the bad habits and then really shining a bright light on them and then kind of poking fun at them. And you do it in a way where it's not like, oh, you're a terrible person if you're living this habit. Because you said it right. Like They get built, the bad habits of companies usually get built up with the best of intentions. Like at one point, we had a problem to solve and we tried
served us well.
We tried this behavior. It got us a good result. It became disbelief.
Yeah.
And
And we just rode that to death.
And then we're just riding that belief. And then, but guess what? Time happens, and then the future comes, and then that belief is no longer serves us. And so we have to, look at, we found one. We found a hurting little habit. Oh, isn't it cute? And then we got to like give that little hurting habit like a character and give it a name and give it some energy. And then we got to like bring it into people's consciousness with stories and storytelling and make fun of it. And
belittle it.
And belittle it, yeah.
And then kill it.
And then kill it.
And then murder it.
That's really
ridiculous.
I don't know if Harvard teaches that, but we like to belittle
like
bad
the most
habits.
Badass way to change culture I've ever heard of. But yes, like you just kind of like go find it. And then what's powerful is when you get lots of people looking for these things. And how do you get lots of people looking for these things? You make what you care about very clear. You make your values clear. You make your purpose clear. You make your results clear. And then like you could just sit back and one day you'll just see it happen where people are doing it for you.
The one thing that I also have noticed that I like is when you identify the problem statement or a problem that you're trying to solve, it's interesting and important the words that you choose to define it. So when we do reflect on 2017 and we talk about our high turnover, the words used are, we are open and take ownership of the fact that these people are firing us. Our employees are firing us. And that's an interesting way to word it because another way to say it is we have a lot of people quitting. People are quitting our company. But that puts the blame on them if you word it that way. And so it's interesting to say they are firing us. Like it's actually our fault. So it makes us look in the mirror and it makes us say, what do we need to change and how do we do things differently?
And this gets to this thing I said earlier about people want to be moved. And they don't even know it. Giving them a percentage of turnover means nothing to them.
Right.
You give them a number of people leaving means nothing to them. But if you use the right words in the right messaging, and we could do a whole podcast one day about storytelling and messaging, and maybe we will, but that's why I do pour over word selection. Word selection is so important. I mean, what we say is so important and people's attention is so valuable, and most of people don't give it to you. And so if they are going to give it to you and they are going to like listen for a second, you better make sure your words matter and count and have stopping power.
You know, it's funny. I remember back in that time when we were at like 100% turnover, when someone would leave, we would sort of, it was very cultural, but we'd be like, oh, good. They weren't gonna,
They weren't hardcore
We'd be
enough.
like, we would do this thing. And I remember one day Bert was like, you know what? These people are going to, I don't know, Salesforce and LinkedIn, and they're doing really well. You know who I think the problem is? I think it's us. I think we're the problem.
Actually, what I would say, and I got this from, so I'm a free, I mean, I love words and writing and old movies and all, and just language and dialogue. And I got this, I've never actually told anybody this. You'll love this.
I love it.
I got this piece of language from the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
And it's not used in the right context, but these words are directly from that movie. And I knew I could rip it off and nobody would know. Because It's a Wonderful Life was done in like the 30s or 40s. And so I said, all these people that are leaving, do we really think they're going to go on and become miserable failures in their careers? Probably not, right? They're probably not. They're probably not going to be miserable failures for the rest of their lives. And so if they're not going to do that, I'd rather them just stay and work through their problems with us, right? And whenever they get through whatever it is, and they are in a down part of their career and struggling, if we can somehow help them and save them and get them through that, then I'd rather, whenever they get to the other side of that, I'd rather they still be working for us.
That's beautiful.
The miserable failure. That's like
Powerful.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Beautiful plagiarism.
Yes.
I do love that. Steve, so knowing this has been your passion since, as long as I can remember, like where did this start for you? Because I feel like it was before Compass, before Insight Global. Where did your love of culture, or even when did culture come into your consciousness?
It's a really good question. I think that I've been really lucky in my life to be around really good leaders. Like, it's very weird. Like, this is super weird, but from my like first ever hockey coach, Mark Morehouse, like I have been super lucky, to my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. George, like I have been blessed with great leadership my life. Like I have always been in the presence of great leaders. Kirby, who we should talk about at some point on the podcast, but being around Kirby. And I think I've always studied leadership. Like I have loved, if there's anything I'm passionate about, it's learning about leaders and people who have shaped the world. I love Abraham Lincoln. I love Steve Jobs. Like I just love kind of people who are able to put a dent in the universe. And I think what I've always figured out is like right next to leadership is culture. And I think leaders understand that culture is their canvas. It is the tool. That is the tool of leaders is culture. And so at a young age, just like watching good leadership, I always just kind of had a great respect for that. And then I think there's something powerful about the best leaders is they can get more out of a finite set of resources. So they could take like 6 people. A great leader could take like 6 people and then create like an exponential effect of what those people are capable of. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I did not get A's in college, but I always paid attention to that. And I think that's like the coolest thing to me that you could do in business is take a bunch of people, put them together, and then make them something greater than what they would have been as individuals.
And when did you attribute that to culture?
It was probably late. Like I think I was always just fascinated by that. It's like one of those things.
What was it? I would love to know. So you started for us in Chicago, recruited there, sold there. Your first leadership opportunity was in St. Louis.
That's
you
right.
opened up that office for us.
Yep.
That's when I remember. I remember you as a sales guy for us for sure, but I didn't know you were like a culture leader maybe until St. Louis. What happened there?
So I was not the best salesperson. I was not the best recruiter. I actually think I have some records that we don't talk about enough.
I recall.
I think it took me like 16 months to get promoted when everybody else gets promoted in like 6 or 8 months. So that's not what you want. And then in sales, like I don't think I sold anything until like 24 months into my career. And I mean, not a lot.
Thank God, you had grit though.
Thank God Bert like saved me when I was like on a growth plan about to get like kicked out of this place. And then Bert was like, guys, please let him stay a little longer because he might figure it out. And if he does, that'd be awesome. So anyway, thank you, Bert. But, and then I wasn't even that successful in sales very long because it took me so long to get promoted. And then like I kind of got successful. And then Kirby's like, hey man, we're going to open up an office. You better go to St. Louis. So from like an esteem perspective, once I got into the role of leadership, I had all these things that I'd thought about and that I was able to use like directly. And so, yeah, when I went to St. Louis, it all kind of like snapped. And I do remember a couple of moments where I was like, oh, I'm going to be really successful at this company.
So awesome.
Like because I'm going to care about people. I'm not going to listen to my leaders if they tell me not to care about people. I'm going to fight for people. I'm going to build language that matters to my people, and we're going to use it to make us more successful. Like we're going to have fun. We're going to care. We're going to love. We're going to cry. Like, and then all of a sudden it just kind of started to happen for me.
Were you in leadership roles as a kid, like on your teams and?
Yeah, I was always like hockey and
Captain of the River Rats.
Yeah, I was, some performances maybe early in the career.
If we can get like a team picture of you as a visual, I think that'd be kind of nice to work in.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could
nice
do that.
Nice ice hockey guy.
Yeah. But then, for me, man, the best thing you could do is have to do hard stuff. That's the best. And there was this one time where Glenn, our founder, who Bert mentioned earlier, he called me. I was in St. Louis. I'd built like the best team. We were about to take over the city. And I'd been there for like 11 months. And he called me. He's like, hey, so New Jersey's like the worst culture in the company. He called it a dumpster fire. He's like, I need you to move there and go help them. And I looked down at my phone and it was like 1 minute and 17 seconds and we were done. And I was moving to New Jersey. Which, by the way, being like a sweet Midwestern boy that I am, like when someone just tells you you're going to go to New Jersey, that's like a little terrifying.
Yeah.
And then I ended up marrying a Jersey girl, which is like even more terrifying. But yeah, I went to Jersey and then had like the most beautiful experience of my life because I tried to do all the stuff that I did in St. Louis and it did not work at all. And at first they like rejected me. And they were like, you say bagel.
The body rejected the organ.
They're like, you say bagel weird. But then, like over time, if you're persistent and if you do a lot of the stuff Bert said, like you care, you look in the mirror, you lean into people, like we got there. And I think by the end of the time there, like because of that team, we ended up building like one of the most special companies or cultures in this company, which is saying something.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, Steve, knowing that this topic of culture is your passion and knowing, as we discussed, even should we do a podcast episode on culture, your heartburn was around how can we do just one on culture?
Yeah.
If we were to, which we will do another episode on culture, what specifically would you want to dive into more deeply next?
I think it's what Bert said. I think it's storytelling. I think pretty quickly after you start to think about culture differently, and you start to see it as a tool that you can use to achieve your business results. I think knowing how to tell that story and how to get into the clarity of where we want to go, but where we are, and how our evolution and how if we just intentionally generate learning, we can get to wherever we want to go. That would be a topic. And the other one would be like, because it's just hard, is connecting to each other. Like that's hard. To be emotionally connected at work is hard, especially when the world has told you that's not what you should do for like the last 20 years of your career. And I have like epic stories of doing this through Compass and helping people like become an emotionally connected leader. And then like the world changes for them, not just at work, but at home too. So I don't know. Those are a couple.
What do you think, Bert? Art of storytelling and authentic connections with people you work with.
Yeah, I mean, and those might even be two separate episodes. I do agree with Steve. I mean, finding the words to say is very important. Okay, so now you've got this idea, you've got a foundation, you got some values, you got a foundation of things, you think you know where you want to go. Well, as the leader, how are you going to say it? You know, how are you going to say it? How often are you going to say it? That's where the real fun and the real hard part begins.
I love it. Well, thanks, guys.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Appreciate you.
See ya.
Thank you, everybody.